right, 6 o'clock. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Karen, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Okay.
You good?
This chair is very hard to deal with.
They are.
I said they are like uncomfortable, but anyway, we can always change out.
I like to be close to the table. Okay.
All right, so before you should see tonight's agenda. And everyone will look that over, and if anyone wants to offer a motion.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Okay, carries 4-0, thank you. Next item of business on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from August 6th, which we all received earlier today. I'm assuming they have been reviewed by everybody. And I will entertain a motion unless anybody has any changes or adjustments to be made, edits. If they have noted.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second motion.
Okay, and any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, all right, carries 4-0, thank you. So we're gonna start with old business, and the first item up is the website update. So if everyone wants to kind of just spin around a little bit in your chair.
So Mary and I have been working on the layout. I have been telling her my ideas and it's coming together. So I just wanted to give y'all an update on what it looks like. It's still not live because we're still working on it. But this right here would be the home page. When you go to the website, you've got a link here to check your voter registration. You've got information about upcoming elections, about precincts, about the board, and then a link to campaign finance.
Yeah, I just added the dates. Yeah, that's what I said. I did stuff today. Stacey doesn't remember.
We've got the flyer that Mary has done for us, so we can end up putting that here, but we're just, like I said, we're still in the stages of just getting the information on here, so we will be able to update it. The different precincts we have listed on here.
Yeah, go to the voting drop down and then there you go. And then you can go.
And then we'll be able to put results on. It'll give you information about voter registration and links to the Secretary of State's website. We're gonna have the elected officials under this tab, and then we've also got the Easy Campaign Finance portal for them to click when they fill out their paperwork.
Is that state officials or just county?
That's just the local elected officials that do it through us.
Yeah, keep
and then-
scrolling. That's where the board, up at the board stuff that I was saying I needed a better picture.
And
But then, like I said, we can add their pictures
yeah, we've got
there.
board information here, and we'll be able to add the board's email addresses. So I just wanted to give y'all an update on what we've been working on. And then we'll be able to see it again once we finish making all the changes before it goes live.
And we're gonna put, or have a tab, I'm assuming, for like the meeting information, minutes, that sort of
Yes,
stuff, right? Okay.
Minutes will end up going on there. We'll be able to post the required reports that we have to from the state every day during the election. That will be able to be updated on there.
What's our target date do we have?
I'm hoping we'll have it live by next month,
Okay, great.
if not before.
Yeah, it probably could be sooner, because again, they're never finished, so we can keep,
Right.
if we get to a point y'all are fine with, then we
Okay.
can keep adding on. Yeah, I wanted to ask like where we're gonna put the minutes, so I'll give you,
Yeah.
yeah, I have a couple punch items for you.
Okay.
So I just wanted y'all to see what we've been working on and where we're at with it. I mean, I think we're pretty much about 80% complete with it. We've just got a couple things to finish with it.
What about like board policies? Will those go up there somewhere?
Well, if you'll go back to the about, like I said, I know, if you go in there,
Under about?
yeah, under the about, under the board, and then I put y'all's, keep scrolling down. Keep scrolling, so there's your whole, as the PDF. Like what I did really is everything that was on the county website is now on that website. Does that make sense? That's what I took before we
That's
could
our
meet.
policy, right?
Yeah, there's your policy. So anything else, I don't know where the minutes, like I said, if they should go to the about, but we can even do another drop down like the voting on about, you know, we could.
Yeah, I think that would be.
It might be better to
in
do
a
another
separate
drop down.
just for the minutes, and then that will eliminate open records requests for our minutes.
Right, and then the other question I had, and this, I mean, it was one of my questions about our challenge policy, is in the Fulton County policy, they post the challenges on their website.
The voter
And I didn't
challenges.
know
We're
if,
not required to do that.
Right.
And we still have not ever had a voter challenge.
okay,
So, I mean, it would be up to the board if the board decided that they wanted to add that to our website.
I know Forsyth County does, only because they were getting so many open records act requests for copies of the challenges that they finally were just like, well, let's just put them on our website in redacted form, and then people can, anytime someone asks them, here's the link.
Yeah.
okay, because I wondered why they would put it on their website, I didn't think about that with the open records
Yeah,
request.
because, Forsyth
Okay.
County has been getting a lot of challenges, which means they get open records act requests for the challenges from
Right.
newspapers and
Right.
Democratic Party and Republican Party, and you know,
I think it would be good under
the
the
DOJ wanted them.
under the about to do a tab for the minutes and a tab for maybe the voter challenge policy.
Okay.
Mhm. Right.
And then we can see how time consuming it is to put the challenges redacted up there.
Yeah, if we
If we
end
get
up with
any.
If
Yeah.
you get any.
Yeah, that was my question,
Right.
redactions, we don't wanna put the challenged personal information up there.
Yeah.
Is there no confidentiality at all with that?
Just your normal confidentiality with open records, which is, you know, like month of date of birth, things like that. But essentially, I mean, everyone's address and everything is on the voter registration lists, and um,
So is there anything else like that that we should think about I'm thinking about a way to, like you were saying, to avoid an open records request where they could just be referred to the website. Is there
Yeah,
anything
or- and
else
then-
that,
I didn't see, is there something on there telling them where to go to make open records act requests, or how to make an open records act request?
I'll add that.
Yeah, we'll add that.
So like I said, we
Because that
can,
has to be done through the county, through the
Mhm.
county clerk. So we can include
Like
information
a,
on
you know, open records act requests go
directed
direct to
to,
her, or whatever.
and we could put her email address.
gotcha.
Any other thoughts,
I'm trying to
anything that should
I mean,
be
once y'all
on?
start with the elections, there'll be all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff up there.
there'll be information up there, the results.
Sample ballot.
Yeah,
Well,
we go to
we
the,
want,
or the one where I did the May 21st where I put everything on there, or under the
thing
voter
about
tab.
the
Go to
sample
election
ballots
results,
is,
go to voting,
I think it would be,
the last tab, election results, there you go. So then there's the PDF reader, and then the sample ballots are below.
because this election is an election that has, District 1 or District 2 commissioner, and that sample ballot is not necessarily for everybody. I think it would be best to put a link to MVP for people to go and pull their sample ballot up there, because I would hate for somebody to see the sample ballot on here and it not be for their district, and then get to the polls and say, why wasn't this person on my ballot? Whereas if it was something that was just completely countywide, we could put it up there, but with this having district races on it, it would probably be better to put a link to.
And I think the same holds true when we have municipal elections, because only people inside the city
municipality.
limits can vote, so it might get confusing if they see it and think they can go vote for it. So we probably, will the voting precincts also show when they do their registration check what precinct they go to?
If they're on their MVP.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It shows what voting precinct that.
So then
they're
they
at.
can reference the precinct page and see
Yes.
where they actually go to.
And it also,
Okay.
on the MVP, when it pulls up their precinct, it tells them where the address to that precinct is.
Okay. It'll be very useful, because I know on election day, the phone rings off the hook with, where's my precinct? Where do I go vote? So this will be an extra tool for them to use, so it'll be great. It's looking good. Thank you, ladies, I appreciate that. Any other thoughts, comments, concerns about the website? All right, so we'll move on to the next one on the agenda, which is the SEB Rule Discussion. We had a lengthy discussion last time. The SEB has met again, and several other things have been sent off to the Rules Committee, but there's not been any final decisions on anything. Is that correct?
So there are 3 rules that were approved, like go into effect September 4th. Do you have this up?
Are they in our old packet?
No, that's the information that I emailed
So
about, the state election board rules. I had emailed
I've got it.
It's like
Last
the
a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
So part of it is you do not have to have that pre-certification meeting no later than 3 p.m. on Friday before the certification deadline.
Okay.
And how will that affect, so like a lot of times, if we don't have,
Like if you have pending UACAPA or pending provisional, or for people to submit their data to cure their provisional ballot, you won't be able to certify until that
Monday.
deadline.
But a lot of times, we're finished with, everything, and we're just waiting on UACAVA at 5 o'clock on that Friday. And sometimes we even certify like right after 5 o'clock on that Friday. So with that certification meeting, will we be able to have both of them? Like a pre-certification and certification
Yep.
together?
Yep.
Okay.
But unfortunately, you can't just do them all at 5 because the way they've done the rule is that the pre-certification meeting has to start no later than 3 p.m.
Okay.
But then you've got like 2 hours
To wait.
where theoretically someone can cure provisional or you have a,
But if we don't have any,
if you don't have any, you can
then
probably go
we
ahead
could go ahead and certify it. We could certify at 3 o'clock because we'd have till 5 o'clock
Yeah.
that Friday to get
Right.
you a CAVA.
But
So
you can
we're
do-
gonna, if possible, we're either gonna have to have that 3 o'clock meeting on Friday after the election and then have another meeting on Monday, or 3 o'clock meeting on Friday and then a 5:30 meeting on Friday as well.
Okay. Book your Friday afternoon with nothing but,
Right.
I think is the best way to say it. Because, I mean, I don't know about the rest of y'all, but probably if we can, it'd be best to do it all in one day. But if we need to carry it into Monday to actually certify, we can do that as well. But knowing that that's one of the requirements under the new SEB rules, I think if we could calendar it, like I say, to book this for Friday afternoon after the election. So that would be Friday, November the 8th, is that correct?
Well, what is that rule number,
Yes, what?
the one that passed, this one we're talking about, the 3 o'clock rule?
That one, that's what, I'm sorry, I didn't print it before it came.
Yeah.
But you said there was three, right? Three rules?
Yeah, so. Yeah, so it changed 183-1-12-.02, and it added sort of that definition of what it means to certify the results. Means to attest after reasonable inquiry that the tabulation and canvassing of the election are complete and accurate.
And you might be asking me again, it was 183 dash.
-1-12-.02.
And in case you didn't know, in our code book, the SEB rules are in the back portion of it, but that's not gonna be the updated one, it's gonna be the one as of, 2023. But if you need to reference any of the current SEB rules, they're in the book. They hadn't always been that way, it used to be two different books, but now they've combined it into one.
Okay.
You're looking for the next one? She's searching.
Yeah. Up here. Okay, it's 183-1-12-.12 is the one that now says you have to meet at no later than 3 p.m.
Okay.
So again,
No later than 3 p.m. to do a pre-certification meeting, and that is when you're supposed to verify essentially that the returns from each precinct match the individual voters that checked in to the precinct.
and what was that number?
183-1-12-.12. So staff is to put together a list of all voters who voted in the election, basically by precinct. And you are supposed to compare and make sure that those numbers match, and if they don't match, figure out why they don't match.
And we basically already, did that before, when we broke our results down into precinct. And then with each of the board members being there on election night, y'all are getting constant updates as soon as we're uploading the results, into the system, and I'm giving you the printouts. So, there has been an instance before where I think, Becky, you were the one that pointed out that, on the final and complete, that y'all voted to certify on, the numbers were different. And we went back and looked, and it was because people had left that contest, like, had the total number of people that voted, but then the number of people that voted for a contest was different, and it was because people left that contest blank. So we were pretty much already doing the same exact thing, but now it's just put into, to law that, or, rule that we do it all over the state.
And specifies our time frame of
Yes.
doing it. Okay, the next SEB rule that we have to,
That's which one did they do, sorry.
Can I ask a question? With all those SEB rules that we got that weren't being voted on, why are only 3?
So they already voted on 3. Those go into effect September 4th. So they have to be advertised for 30 days. So they sort of moved, they actually withdrew. It was another, 8-hour meeting? They withdrew some to rework, I guess. Then they voted final on 3, which takes effect September 4th. Then there were about 10 other rules that they published for the 30 days, and that's what they have a meeting set for September 20th to consider those.
And if they vote on those and approve any of those,
Then they go to the Secretary of State and they take effect 20 days after they submit it to the Secretary of State.
so it can actually happen before
It
this
could
election.
happen before the election, yes.
Wow, that's a whole lot of time for us to prep.
And then there's some that's held
So-
up currently in litigation,
Mm-hmm.
that,
Some of
So,
them are pretty straightforward, with really no, in my opinion, not a whole lot of impact. But there are some that are very impactful.
well, there was some, like, one of them, was requiring postage of eligible electors list before advance voting begins. And, you know, they get that information, on the county level, we don't supply that information because the state requires you to pay for that information. So if I were to request it from the state outside of an election of them sending me that information, they would require me to pay for it. So we just direct anyone who asks us for that information through open records or who wants that information to the state's website, and they can purchase it through there. But there were two different rules from that state election board meeting that they voted to go forward with that would require us to post it on our website, time stamped, and so it kind of didn't make a whole lot of sense to me when they could currently get it from the state, but they're wanting to give everybody access to it so they don't have to pay for it, is what I gathered out of it.
yeah, one of the other proposed rules is also, would make different things free. They still have a proposed rule for actually counting the physical ballots
Which has
on
not been
election
passed yet. It
day.
was
That
kind
one
of
hasn't passed.
reworded and it will be presented again.
Another one that is going to be presented, which would be very expensive, so hopefully they don't do it, is the sending absentee ballots
Yes.
by a paid tracking method.
We would have,
That's right.
And that it would be,
and I've already
Quite
spoke to
expensive.
our commissioners about that because, we've had to turn in our preliminary budget for next year already. And I contacted the commissioners and said, hey, I know I've already submitted to you, my guesstimate of what we're gonna have. But if this passes, we're gonna have the funding because we'll have to send out every absentee with a tracking number, and that's gonna cost us even more to send it out. And I said, what do I do about that? And we would probably end up having, because it's already been submitted, we would have to end up, the board would vote on it for a budget amendment, and it would have to go in front of the Board of Commissioners. But there's really no way of knowing how much money to request because we don't know from election to election how many absentees we're gonna end up getting.
Is there a timeline for the turnaround for the tracking aspect?
didn't say, they're discussing it again on September 20th. But then just from third-party source, like it was recommending
I mean,
the mail, but
It stated the US Postal Service.
yeah,
That's my point.
but the US Postal Service doesn't do tracking unless it's a package, a parcel, or they don't do it
It has to
for-
be like priority or something.
has to
be a certain.
Yes, so it has to already, like, they don't just do it for normal
Right.
bulk mail.
Right.
Or, however they go out, like, it has to be like a priority service. Then there's that ballot track service.
And the same would apply to someone like FedEx or UPS or something along those lines, right?
Mhm.
It
That doesn't make sense.
I would hope they're getting feedback on just how expensive
Yeah.
that would be.
And the cost
To
the county for that. I'm hoping that
But if
they,
anybody has any questions or concerns about these particular changes, you can submit requests to be
Yes.
go to in front of them if they have room to discuss it on the 20th, right?
So you can sign up, but from what I understand, you have to get there early.
yes.
I was at a meeting that the chair was at, and he said he reads every comment he receives via email on the proposed rules.
So emailing
So
him is the
he's like,
priority.
if you can't
of-
come, he's like, I read every email.
And he's supposed to be at our regional meeting on Thursday. So hopefully, maybe he'll have some more information for us, that I can pass along. But like with the 11 changes that I sent to you in your email, if you feel strongly about any of those, if you have questions about those, or if you just want to make a comment, reach out to those state election board members. I put the website that you can get their email addresses from, because he did say that they read each email. And
That was one of my notes that I made on all the documents from the tracking perspective, was the U.S. Postal Service, knowing what we know of Pickens County and some of the issues that we've seen and read about. I wonder if that was I don't understand that being an option, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think that the mail service in general, unfortunately, in Georgia has been under a lot of, it's
Yes.
been under a
I-
microscope, a
that
lot of
actually-
scrutiny, and that is,
For good reason.
we've got to get for trouble
Yeah,
then too
no,
with
I
that.
unfortunately think a lot of people are gonna find that they get their ballot late or it comes back late just because there's been so many postal service problems.
and
And I feel bad for the people that absolutely have to vote absentee.
I will tell you, when we did the March election and we sent absentees out, we had a couple that was out of town that came in during that first week of early voting for the May election, and we had sent their ballot out in February, and they just received it the first week of the May election. So they brought it in and surrendered it to us and told us, hey, we just got this. We know it's too late, but we wanted to bring it in and let you know we just received it. And we documented that, and that was during the middle of the Palmetto incident, where mail was, getting lost. So we made it a point when we started taking absentees for the May election to the post office, anything that was gonna be local. And we had several calls from local voters who had applied for absentees that we would send it out, and like a week later, they just still didn't have it, and we're like, give it a couple more days. And it eventually came, but they also didn't want to be pushed to the, deadline about receiving it and getting it back. So in May, when we took them inside the post office, and we have a good postmaster, we have really good postal workers. We asked that all of the ones for Pickens County stayed in Pickens County and didn't go down to Atlanta and come back. And we had voters that we took it to the post office one afternoon, the next day they received it in the mail. So we had people actually returning it back by that third day.
Wow.
So that's something that we'll continue to do for the ones that stay inside of the county. We can't guarantee that the ones that are going, to other states, that, what time it will get there, because once it goes to the postal service and goes out of our hands, we have no control. But the ones that are staying inside of Pickens County, we're gonna try to get them to them as quick as we possibly can, working with our postal system.
And I will say, even just from a personal standpoint, I have sent priority out of state, and now they're giving you a window. When it used to be like 2 days, now they're covering them, the postal people are covering themselves and giving you a window so that people are not expecting their mail to be there right. And so I don't even know what the priority or tracking is gonna do, because I don't think it's gonna speed it up either, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No, it's not gonna speed it up.
No.
The other changes were just about the reconciliation report that has to be done, which I think you were doing anyway, but now it has to be posted and available. And then there's other, like, election night reporting stuff you're supposed to put on the website, like, that night.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
And what number is that?
those are they're all in 183 dash, it's 1-12-12, I think. 1-12-.12.
So they tied that all into one, right?
They combined them?
Yeah, there was different parts of.
Yeah, there were, like, different parts.
183-1-12-.1, there was like, 1-2, it was section A, section 5, so.
Yeah, but those, I don't think those are onerous for anyone or anything.
Okay.
None
The
of the
big
other,
ones, the big
none
ones
of the
basically
other
are still
changes,
come, I
like,
guess.
I mean, the 3 PM meeting, you know, you're still, it should have been 5, I think, but just because you're still waiting
On
for
your
something, but, yeah.
And do you want to discuss about, the possibility of this, anything that's tied up in litigation
So, I
that
don't
might possibly,
think there's been any order yet
Okay.
holding, so there has been litigation filed by the Democratic Party of Georgia seeking to prevent some of these from moving forward
so
prior
many
to
days
the
out from the
election.
election.
Yeah. But it's been filed, I haven't heard of any, or it got filed last Thursday, maybe, does that sound right? Yeah, so
Wednesday or Thursday.
yeah, it's the Democratic Party of Georgia, and they're seeking essentially to halt anything from going into effect this close to the election.
And I've been told that at the next election board meeting that there's going to be several more petitions to change rules, but Karen and I were talking,
I don't think those would make it in
If it-
time.
goes into the
Timeframe-wise, it's just not.
rulemaking procedure process, it will have to be posted for another 30
Yeah.
days. And then it wouldn't take into effect until 20 days after that, so I think that would be too close if they vote on anything at the next meeting. Before, that it wouldn't go into
Yeah,
effect
so
for the November
their
election.
meeting, I forgot what date, it was like August 17th or something, so there were about 10 that they decided to move forward with rulemaking. Those went on the website and have to stay on the website for 30 days, and that's where they are now. And so that's why their meeting is September 20th. And then if they approve them, they go to the Secretary of State to formalize them, and then they go into effect 20 days.
So anything that they introduce at the September 20th meeting,
Or 20 days at the latest, they can go into effect earlier, but
then would have to go on the website for an additional 30 days before it went to the Secretary of State. So that's probably, if they pass anything at the next meeting, to initiate the rulemaking process of it, then that probably won't go into effect before the November election. But anything that they've already went into the initiation process could pass and go into effect before November.
So of the 11 that are sitting there, potentially something could come out of that still. But
Yes.
anything additional besides those 11 that are sitting there, we should
It-
not see,
it is doubtful
Right.
that they would make it.
they would
So-
not have the time frame. Okay.
So with the 11 that are on, that we've seen in our email, are there any that we should anticipate possibly passing that could be impactful for us? Anticipate personnel, money-wise, anything like
Counting the
that?
ballot to me.
Counting the
Yeah,
ballot,
so the counting the ballots on election night,
What are the chances of that?
there's several of the board.
No, well, it was that they were redoing that one.
Yeah, they withdrew it,
Now, if I remember, I don't remember the
They
number, but is that
withdrew
in there? You have the manager and 2 additional
Mhm.
people,
And
They'd have to
each
separate them by
person
50,
has to,
and then you have to count them separately, individually, and then you have to do the calculation, they all have to match.
Yeah, there were several election officials that spoke out during that meeting. And one of the state election board members had talked to, it's Janelle King. And she was the one that actually is helping amend that petition. And it would allow, they still want you to count the ballots, but if you have over 750 ballots at your precinct, it would allow them to possibly be able to count them the next day. But if you had under 750, then you would have to do it that night. So there's several that are in favor for that that rule to pass, and it's just really gonna depend on.
Do we have any precincts that,
Yellow Creek, would be over, could potentially be over
Well, all of them would be over
Yeah.
except for Nelson. Or
Right.
not, I'm sorry, not Nelson.
But I'm saying as
Ludlow.
far as turnout wise,
Yeah.
Yellow Creek would
Ludlow.
definitely be one that would be.
Ludlow only
big.
has about around 400 to 500 voters that vote, so that would definitely have to be done that night.
Mhm.
I'm assuming that all the other ones would have over that, especially for this election. Maybe not just a local election, but for this election, I'm betting that it will.
So does that mention or contemplate actually reporting before that count goes into effect? In other words, will they report it in because you guys do the report to the state before the end of the night?
Yeah, so actually, because you're not counting, you're not doing an audit on the results. You're not looking at who the winner is. You're just counting the paper.
Right,
So you're gonna make sure that the number of pieces of paper that are in the belly of that scanner is gonna be the same thing that is on the scanner calculator, which is the same number that is on the poll pads, which is the same number that is on the BMDs. And if not, do you have something to show why it doesn't match up? Did you have spoiled ballots?
right.
Did you have a malfunction where you've written up an incident report? So all that would be taken into consideration, with the numbers. But that hourly report that we go through and do with our poll watchers, that, right there should show us if there's a discrepancy between each hour, and we should have documentation, but this would just be to pull out the ballots and 3 individual people count it and make sure that they're getting the same number that our reports have shown at the end of the night.
Right, because I guess my ultimate question is, they pull those chips for us to pick up before that count would probably be completed.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So,
Yeah.
we're bringing the wrong.
Because what we, the best practice to do is to, shut down the scanner, print out your tapes, unplug the scanner from the wall, and then take out the memory card, because if you take out if you don't do it in the right process, it could damage the files on the memory card. So it's always good to unplug it from the wall before you take the memory card out. And then after they do that is when they start taking the ballots out of the belly of the scanner and putting it into the ballot containers to seal. So they would still do the same process that we normally do, except when they take them out, then they'll have to have an area set up with a table to start counting those.
Gotcha.
It's been a minute since I've been at the level office, so I don't remember unplugging it from the wall before we started all that downstream effect. That is written up?
That's how we suggest that they do it. It's
But
best practice.
it should be more than a suggestion though.
Well, it's best practice.
Okay.
As long as they turn off the scanner and power it down, it's okay. But I just tell them best practice, after you power it down, go ahead and unplug it from the wall. And we do tell them that during training.
Gotcha.
So you have poll managers who have been doing it a lot longer than I have. And then, at the end of the night, they're tired too. I won't say every single one of them remember to do that, but they do all shut it down before they take the memory card out. But I just say, go ahead and unplug it from
I
the
just
wall.
didn't remember the unplugging part.
Yeah.
There was one other that passed. So 183-1-14-.02, which goes into effect, I think September 4th. That when you drop off an absentee ballot to staff, you have to, there's supposed to be a form that Secretary of State is supposed to come up with. I don't think I've seen one yet. That you give your photo ID to staff to notate who's dropping off the ballot.
And from what
But the way I read it is if you drop it in the Dropbox,
you don't have to do that.
this.
But and we don't our staff doesn't physically touch the ballot when they bring it in anyway. So if somebody walked in and handed the ballot, to our receptionist and said, I need to submit this ballot, and it exchanged hands, this is a chain of custody of saying that this person dropped it off, and if you are not the person that the ballot is for, we have documentation of who dropped it off for them. But if they just drop it in the ballot box, they don't have to do
Yeah,
that. And
so-
since we don't actually physically take it from individuals, they come in and they automatically drop it in the ballot box, that really would not.
Yeah, because the way the rule is worded, it says, except for absentee ballots deposited in the US mail or into drop boxes. Then, yeah.
It's okay, Rick, we understand.
I'm just as confused as you are.
Well, that's not confusion of what I'm thinking, because that makes absolutely no sense.
I'm confused of why they passed that rule.
I don't know the,
What was the intent behind it?
no, I know the intent behind it, but putting in the exception that it doesn't count the absentee ballot boxes.
Yeah.
Well,
Anybody could go and drop it in there.
Just defeated
And
it.
one of the things,
Yes, I mean-
before they amended that, one of the things that it said was, the way they had it worded, if UPS brought ballots in, or if, USPS brought ballots in, you would have to get the delivery drivers to fill that form out, but then they went back and amended it, to exclude
Can you
that.
imagine that?
So what about the lobby you had to get to?
and the other thing is that the ballot boxes at night after the office is closed either has to be under constant video surveillance or locked.
And ours is both, ours is inside, and we check it every evening at 5:00, and we check it the next morning at 8:00, and we document that on the forms provided by the Secretary of State,
And the camera's on it all the time.
24/7.
Yeah, so I completely understand why they put a rule in place about getting a photo ID and everything of who is dropping a ballot off, but the throwing in the except dropping it drop box is sort of.
20 times.
Hey, I learned a long time ago that sometimes you just have to keep your mouth shut, or otherwise you stick your foot in it and get yourself in trouble. So,
Yeah, so they still are gonna consider the ballot counting.
So can I ask a technical question about going back to the withdrawal of the ballot counting? You said that they presented it and then they withdrew it. So,
Or, I don't think they withdrew it, they were going to amend it.
They-
I was saying, how does that fit into the timeline process is I guess what my question
The
was.
person who presented it had to withdraw their petition. And then they were able to introduce an amended petition
one.
by the end of that meeting. So they
Okay.
didn't even have to wait till the next meeting. They
Okay.
let them get together during the lunch break, reword the petition, because it was one of the SEB board members that asked the presenter to withdraw their petition. They combined their thoughts on it and introduced a new petition for it by the end of that meeting.
Okay, that's how it's gonna make, because I was like, based on what we were just talking about earlier with the time frame, I was like, wait a minute, now I'm
Before
Little-
anything could be amended, the original presenter had to withdraw their
Okay.
petition.
okay. That's a lot.
Yeah, so some of the other stuff, it has to do about the memory cards, instead of reusing them, you have to keep them.
Which is another expense
That's
to the
an
county,
expense,
because
so-
those memory cards are
10
not cheap.
years, right? How long
2
you have to keep
years.
2
2
years?
years.
But so for now, you can load everything onto the server and reuse the
30
cards,
days
but-
later, but this would require us to constantly be buying these new cards. And for us, it's 13 precincts total, but you get some of the larger counties, which they have larger budgets, and it's
It adds up.
50, 60, 70, memory cards for each election. So it's an additional cost to the counties that a lot of counties have already submitted their budget requests for next year, and we're not able to include that in their budget.
But if you can load it onto the server and maintain it there, okay. If they'll allow that.
That's what we do now, yeah.
That's what we do now. But this would require us to still keep the physical.
Keep the card as well.
And then there was another one, he actually withdrew this and then they amended it. He wanted like different colored paper for like emergency and paper ballots, and they changed that and resubmitted it where it would be, there'd be like a mark on the top to distinguish like absentee, emergency ballot, provisional ballot. Would have like just,
And that would be
That header or
another
something.
additional cost to the county because you wouldn't know how many of each one of those you need. Now we have, it's all three, combined into one. We order, a certain percentage of registered voters for each precinct and we use it for all three. But if it were to do that, then we would have to figure out another way of
3 times the amount, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to figure out another way of figuring out like how many you need and the additional cost, and probably because it's on different colored paper.
no, they dropped that.
They did?
They dropped
Okay.
that. That was what he withdrew
Okay.
because they talked
But you
about
still
not
have
being
to
able to
have
do
each
that. And-
individual documents to make sure that each precinct does not run out, right?
The tracking service. They're still going to consider allowing, poll workers into the tabulation area.
Poll watchers.
Poll watcher.
Yes, sorry, poll watchers.
So let's talk about that a minute. So in our situation, in our county, what would that mean? Because
Allowing them more access in the tabulation area. And it wouldn't change anything for us because
Okay.
that's why I had, when we were moving offices, put that window up.
right,
So anybody and everybody can walk up as close as they can. I mean, they can't reach out and touch, us because it's behind the window, but they can see everything we're doing. So with us, we were already doing, letting them have as much access as possible. So that won't change anything.
And I feel like with the panels, and the fact that we are in the open space out there, they're seeing
Right.
us count,
Yeah.
the
It's
absentees,
all-
so I think it's open, we're
Yeah.
pretty open to,
yeah, because I was thinking when I read that rule that for us,
It's not.
Yeah, I mean, I think
It
it's really
won't
gonna
matter.
just affect counties
That
who
who
have-
have already.
or have a completely different kind of configuration
Yeah.
that's,
Half of those didn't really impact us at all, almost.
it doesn't seem
No.
like they would be
But
not.
for other counties, I can see where that would be,
Mhm.
could be an issue for them.
right,
Mhm.
Much county, Fulton County, people like that.
Right.
And the next meeting, like we said, is September 20th, so if you've got an entire day to kill, feel free to get on there and watch
Are we gonna
it.
have a bus going
Oh,
down?
wait a minute, they're not doing it in person anymore, I
So-
don't think.
This one they are.
Oh, they are doing it in person.
It's televised?
They weren't.
There was.
It's,
there
yeah,
was
you can
so
access it
much-
on the website.
They have it
on the-
online, and I
That's what
thought they
I'm
were going to do
This
fully
state
remote,
election board.
but they,
This one, they're going back to in person.
Okay.
This is downtown, right?
Yes,
Yes.
at the Capitol.
And, I mean, from what I hear, like, people get there
The
early,
last time,
early,
there were
early.
2 different overflow rooms because there were so many people down there. But if you happen to, I'll send out a reminder to the board, just letting them know, hey, don't forget the meeting's coming up if you wanna watch it, and give you the link to it. But if not, if you don't get a chance to watch it, I will update you with anything that they pass or anything that they introduce, a new petition for.
And I think that it goes without saying again, that if there is anyone with concerns about any of these, email them. They want to hear. They have said they will read the emails, is what you all have heard directly from the chair of the SEB. So flood the inboxes, I think, is the best way to say it, if there's concerns.
Well, and he emphasized too that, a lot of people who speak at the meetings aren't necessarily, they're not working elections, they're not the boards, they're not the employees, and he said we need to hear more from the people actually working.
A lot of the people that get up and speak are not even from the state of Georgia, who are, introducing these petitions. I will say there were quite a few election officials who did speak at
At
the last
one, yeah, Gavrio had a pretty
Gavrio,
good presence.
had a statement put out, and then we had several election officials that had been doing it for quite a few years, who got up and said their piece about how they felt like it would affect everyone. And one of the things that Paulding County said is, we're all not Fulton County. I understand like a lot of this is addressed towards Fulton County, but there's 158 of us that are not Fulton County. And hopefully they'll take that into consideration. But a lot of this is being targeted and addressed directly at Fulton County, but it's gonna trickle down and affect all 158 other counties.
Yeah, Fulton and DeKalb were the two ones that they were really not okay with, so. All right, well, thank you both for that update, and we shall see what happens on September 20th, I guess. All right, next item of business is the bylaw update. And Stacy, I believe those were received after our last meeting with the recommended changes. Karen made those changes.
Yeah, so I think I got everyone's changes, and then I created just like I did like a compare that compared and put like the red lines in to the original from last year.
The changes
bylaws.
that we made that you asked to be in red is all gonna be on your should be your blue tab, and then your pink tab would be what was actually posted on the website, and it has been posted for at least 5 days.
This
Was
makes
it 5
it
days or
so
30 days?
much.
It had to be 5 days.
Oh, make it 30 days.
That was for the state election board, but for the changes to our bylaws, it just had to be for 5 days.
Kudos for this.
That would be all here.
It's awesome.
Where does this?
Yeah, I did like because originally we started with PDF, and then we had to do it in Word, and then I just did a compare. So.
All right, so if everybody will take a look at that and make sure that we have made all the required changes. As Stacy said, we have fulfilled the requirement that if everybody is okay with the version under the pink tab, then we can vote to update, pass these bylaws, because they have been on the website for the required number of days, and then some, I think, so.
So do we need a motion then to approve it, since we already sort of approved it? We do. So I make a motion to approve the revised bylaws as presented.
I'll say.
All right, thank you. Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Right.
Carries 4-0. Thank you, and thank you both for
Yes.
getting those updated, so now we're a little more, especially with having the public policy, or public participation policy included in it, so, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, and so not to be outdone by bylaws, let's hear about a voter challenge policy that we've been working on. And I'm assuming that is the purple tab, correct?
Yes.
And Karen or Stacy, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, so it seemed like the majority of the board liked Gwinnett's. This is a little bit of a combination. I did put it all in one document rather than two, so it starts with everything that would be the same for both, for 229 challenge or 230 challenge. And then goes into the specifics for if you're filing a challenge under 230 or 229. So,
But the Sac County did that, right? Sac County.
yeah, and
Which I like
I
that.
can't remember if Fulton's did that
Yeah.
also, but
Yeah.
so it's sort of the ones that are common to both the authority and purpose, the scope, and it runs through, only Pickens County voters can challenge Pickens County voters, how you submit the challenge in writing, You have to specify the grounds of the challenge. A lot of this just is sort of a summary of state law that, and that you have to, submit the documents to go. I did say, to help facilitate the review, I didn't make it must provide, but just should provide the name, address, everything, because then that makes it easier for staff to make sure that they're pulling up the right voter. It has in here that the election supervisor is authorized to request additional information from the challenger if necessary to clarify any facts or anything when that comes in. In particular, a residency-based challenge must allege facts sufficient to specifically and distinctly identify the grounds for the challenger's allegation that a registered voter is not satisfied with the residency requirements. And that is sort of going back to some of the changes that the legislature put into 21-217, that just having a national change of address is not sufficient alone. There may be other factors, but that in and of itself, especially because people may temporarily change their address all the time, but that's still, they haven't changed their residence.
Right. Specifically and distinctly identify.
I added in that Stacy, I'm assuming their IT is not gonna want her taking random computer stuff to put into her computer.
Right, no. Not after the IT problem she had over the weekend.
But they can submit either paper or PDF files. I know that Fulton County, I learned this last week, they require people to submit it by mail and paper copies. They don't even allow people to PDF, but I actually think it's probably easier for you too.
I'm hoping that we stay with we don't receive any.
Yeah, I was saying,
It's far.
well, and I think
Yeah.
that Fulton County probably is getting a ton more than what we would expect to see up here, so
Yeah.
PDF probably.
Fulton County is actually getting sued also for a person bringing challenges saying that they are rejecting his challenges unlawfully.
Oh, wow, okay.
The next two, 6 and 7, I borrowed that from Forsyth's policy, and it's not like an exhaustive list, but I just like to give examples of what kind of items people can submit to show that someone should no longer be a Pickens County registered voter. And then I added again, and this was already sort of in the federal law, and then it got adopted into with Senate Bill 189, is that solely on national change of address data is not sufficient.
So this document, purple document we're looking at, did you send this to us already? I missed this.
Yeah, that was in the email this morning.
Okay, I missed this.
Under 230, again, the way the state law just says you will immediately consider these challenges. It does not define immediately. But the state law actually did just change recently in Senate Bill 189 that you can't consider 45 days before an election. So they kind of done a cutoff. So that's coming up September 21st.
Okay.
But I put in here that Stacy would basically ascertain if there's a date, if you want to review them at the next meeting, or if you want to set a special called meeting, that she would do that. She could set it. It has to be noticed just like you would any other meeting. And then she would provide you with what was submitted by the challenger, and it reviews, the standard is probable cause, that a reasonable person to believe that the challenged elector should not vote in the next upcoming election. Again, if you uphold a challenge on this one, it doesn't remove someone from the rolls. It
Right.
basically just flags
That's
them.
29, right? Or
That's under 230.
230. It completely removes them at 230, right?
No, 229 completely removes them. You would think they would be reversed
229.
numbers, yes. 230 just flags them,
For that election.
and if they come in to vote,
It
they are basically, you have been flagged and possibly no longer residing at this address. We recommend, and the Secretary of State recommends this affirmation form that's like separate, where they're swearing that this is my address, and they have the option of signing that or not. So, then it runs through, again, this is sort of just following state law with 229s. When you get them in, Stacy needs to mail the notices within 10 days, and the notices have to have the date of the hearing on them, so, she will be reaching out to you to find a date when people are available, so that she can at least, you don't have to hold the hearing within the 10 days, but, she needs to send those notices out within 10 days, and it's gotta have the date to tell them when it is.
When you're.
Cause this one has more stringent requirements for notice, because it does remove someone from the rolls, yeah. I did throw in there that within 90 days of an election, I think everyone has to consider does staff have time to do this one? As you get closer and closer to the election, it may not be possible for everything to actually get done. Like, really, the best time to do these is in the off-election years. But it's not always what happens. But Georgia law requires that the challenger bear the burden of proof. So, and you really are sort of sitting as the judge with that. I've put in the standard of proof that was required under Georgia law, which is the preponderance of the evidence. A reasonable and impartial mind would find that the challenged elector should no longer be on the list of the electors. You do, under the statute, have the authority to issue subpoenas. I've never known anyone to actually do this, but you can.
And when they say you have, they don't specify who. Would it
Yeah.
be the chair or her or?
Stacy
Says
or
the
board?
superintendent,
But I
but-
never knew what
Yeah.
was the
So
whole,
we'd have to collect.
so it'd be all.
I've never known it, because that like requires the sheriff.
I say that just is adding to cost,
And-
because you have to pay for service, so,
Yeah,
And
yeah.
who pays the monitoring fee?
the challenger actually pays for, yeah, I think it is the challenger. I've got to go back in statute, it is the challenger,
I don't think so.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
question,
But I
Who pays
have
the
never,
monitoring fee?
even with
The
Fulton and DeKalb that get a lot of these, I've never heard of anyone actually doing that.
Requesting subpoenas shall be responsible. Subpoenaed witnesses shall be.
I mean, normally it's the person requesting the subpoena that has to pay the fees.
Right.
So if we are, I would assume it would be on us to pay those.
Yeah, I have never known anyone to actually do
It would come out of the,
that.
it would come out of the county budget. I'm gonna make Rick pony up the money over
The
there.
party requesting the subpoenas will be responsible to serve.
So that
and
would
pay
be
for,
us
so.
if we requested one.
Does it say?
It says the party requesting the subpoena.
So if we
Must
wanted
pay
to,
any fees?
But then it just says the board of registrars shall have the authority to issue subpoenas. But it could be, like the challenger could request you to issue a subpoena, and then they
can
have
you
to pay for
imagine
it,
if they
but-
lived in, thank God we put in there that they had to live in Pickens County, cause what if we had to do service else? And witnesses or whatever, that would get really
Yeah, and
expensive.
really, you're only
Not that big.
required to send the notice letter to their registered address.
Mhm.
So even
If
if
that's not
you,
where they're at anymore,
they're not gonna get it, cause they,
But I'm talking about like witnesses, if you have to
Yeah.
subpoena witnesses, what,
The sheriff will serve them. You have to pay a
if
fee.
you're in Florida? Or, South Georgia or something like that, then
They really-
that turns into a whole nother service issue.
It's other
Yeah.
than the
A
state.
ton of fees, so,
yeah, I've been calling mail.
yeah.
And I think I did actually put in here, think I put it.
What are you looking for?
Can't remember if I put it in. I had thought about putting in that Stacy, if she had an email address.
It's not in there. 'Cause
Oh,
that's
I have
one
it
of
in
the
for
things that I
2:30.
Thought we needed to have.
Oh, for 2:30, so you don't notice people for the 2:30 until after the challenge, after you've upheld it. Then you have to send them notice that you've been challenged, the board has challenged your registration. That goes out by first class mail. I did put in here that if Stacy had an address on file for the voter, she may also email the notice.
You do have, if there's an email address on
Okay,
file, number, paragraph 5.
On 229.
229.
Okay, I did add it, okay.
Yeah.
But I put it as a just may, not a requirement.
What were you talking about, Terry?
I have a lot of changes. I actually prefer the Fulton County, and I didn't want to put that in an email because I think that violates the open records. The open meetings
Okay.
rule.
Mhm.
So that's why I didn't respond to everybody. And so consequently, I have a lot of suggested changes.
Okay.
Because I really prefer the Fulton policy because I think it's much more explicit, I think it's much more clear. And I just don't want us to get in a situation where we have a voter challenge and we're kind of sitting here looking at each other going, oh gosh, well, is this enough? Is this, what should we do? Whereas if we had more examples in the policy, I think it would make it clear to the person making the challenge, but also be more clear to the board. So, do you want me to go through what my suggestions are? Are we gonna try to vote on this today?
We don't have to, I mean, was just a draft. So if
Yeah.
you wanna go over them now, we can go over them, and then if you wanna email them to me, then I
Right.
can forward them on to Karen, and if
Okay.
anybody else has any. I just, we won't be able to vote on it unless we had a special
Yeah.
meeting, until our next meeting, which would be in October, but
Right.
that would still be before the November election. So we could vote on it in October.
Okay, all right, well, just so y'all will know, and I will send it to Stace, but, I think, so in the Fulton County policy, it's section F little 2I. It specifically says that there can be no challenge, given to a poll manager or a poll worker. I think that's a good idea to include that, so that on election day or during absentee or early voting, somebody doesn't try to hand a challenge, to a poll manager or a poll worker. In section, this is paragraph 3, where it says challenges must be in writing and shall specify. I think the statute says distinctly the grounds of the challenge. I think we should just add that one word. And then the next sentence where it says, it's sort of like wherever we have will, I think it shall be shall. So in that one, it should be, if you don't, meet the requirements, then it shall be, the challenge shall be rejected. And then there's some language, that I think would be good to add. Challenges unsupported by specific evidence of voter ineligibility shall be rejected. Challenges based on general knowledge without specific individual evidence for each voter shall be rejected. And then in the part where you have the list of the things, that are a basis for a challenge, death, mental incapacity, etc., that, it should say, for example, and without limitation. And frankly, I didn't go back and look at the statute, but where it's felony conviction status, I mean, if someone with a felony conviction has completed their entire sentence, then they are eligible to vote. So I think that's incorrect. Let's see, I think we need to have a section about the national law, that talks about the requirements that you can't file a, systematic challenge, within, is it 90 days of the election, and the section that deals with discrimination. So that if somebody were to come in and file a challenge against every single Hispanic voter in Pickens County, that we would be authorized to reject that because that's discriminatory, or, any other protected basis such as disabilities or, gender.
They would itemize each Hispanic voter, or just say as a general rule, it's a broad Hispanic voters.
No, the language is actually in the federal law with regard to non-discrimination. So I think that should be included in here.
Okay.
Okay.
And when I said the same thing when I made my comments, I thought that there were good things about each one, and we should maybe combine them. And then I thought, well, if I say that means that they're gonna tell me that I should just go ahead and write it. So I didn't pursue it, so maybe you wanna go ahead and write one.
But you just said it.
Yeah.
I didn't pursue it, she's saying.
So, and then in paragraph 4 about probable cause, all it says is probable cause to uphold the challenge will exist when facts and circumstances would lead a reasonable person to believe. I don't think that's adequate. I think that we need to have a definition of what's probable cause, and there's language in both the Fulton County policy and in the ACLU guidance that we were provided at our last meeting that's more specific about what actually constitutes probable cause. The whole business about these voters don't get any knowledge, they don't get any notice that this is happening to them, and as Stacy pointed out, if all we do is send a notice to the address which is being challenged, they're never gonna get any notice. I think that's nonsensical, and not really fair to the voters being challenged. So I think we need to have specific language that says if we have an email address, we'll email them. And if we have a phone number, which I don't even know if we would, but if we did, that we would attempt to call these people and leave a message.
On their voter registration, we wouldn't have that for an individual.
Let me see here, the other, everything else it's everything I know, the other thing is, post-determination procedures, we don't really have anything about that in here. And there's, language in the Fulton County policy about what happens and notices that you have to send and, all of that. And then I had a question which you already answered about whether we should post the challenges on our website. But it sounds like that's not really needed at this point. So anyway, but I'm happy to put all that.
Yeah, if you'll
In
put
writing,
it
I'll send
in
you an
writing, and any other changes that you might have for other board members, if you'll maybe submit it to me and get it to me before next week, the end of next week, I can get it to Karen. She can get us an updated draft and I could send it out for you to have ahead of the next board meeting. And then that way, once you see it, if anybody sees any other minor changes that need to be made, we can get it made and then vote on it at the next meeting.
Sounds great. Thank you.
That'll work.
Yeah.
That'll work.
One thing, stepping back to the subpoenas just for a minute, I've seen my share of them. They all say in the Superior Court of, State Court of, District Court of, we probably have to draft our own subpoena, a modification of, what is available to them.
I
Say the board.
It's an option to subpoena people, but again, I've never heard of any county
Right.
actually doing it.
It'll probably eventually come up, but I'm just saying, when that time comes, we may have to come up with something unique.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think this is some uncharted territory up here for us, so that's why we have pulled from some of the other counties on their policy and what have you, but I think we need to be prepared.
Love the state election board to put some rules
Yes.
together on voter challenges. That is one area.
Right.
I was talking to someone about this today, like so many counties are handling them differently.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because there's not a single state election board rule on voter challenges.
Something else to email them about.
Yes.
There we go.
That's something that I can, talk to my counterparts in other counties and see if they have had subpoenas, and how it was worded. So that way, we can go ahead and have something in place, were we to ever need that. And be proactive about it.
Good deal. Good deal.
And so the law only requires that the notice go out to the registered address. But you could put in the policy too, like if Stacy gets a bounce back return, return to sender or a forwarding notice, that she turn around and send the notice to the new address that she got, or, yeah.
To get it to where we think it needs to go. So do we need to have a motion to table it?
It was under old business, so I think we're in the same posture as we were with the bylaws. And just out of curiosity, do we have any obligation for posting this policy like we did our bylaws for a period of time prior to adopting it as a board? No.
I mean, you
Okay.
can if you want to.
Okay.
And also, any of the emails that you're sending or with any changes to Stacy, those are open records too, so. And if you keep in touch with your neighborhood people or, next door or anything, you can solicit
Okay.
advice or.
Our neighboring counties and see what they got. Okay. So you're gonna send those over, and like I say, at this point, I'm assuming that we'll just table this till the next meeting then, because it's already been under old business, so we're gonna clean it up, tighten it up, fix it up, and then we'll have it at the next meeting. So, okay, good. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for all the work on that too, Karen. I appreciate it. Because not easy, that's for sure.
And again, it's like there's no state standard.
No, there's no definitive, so we're trying to figure out how to make our process work up here, what's best, so. Okay, next item on the calendar, or agenda, sorry, is under new business, is printer purchase. And Stacy?
So in, the end of last year, beginning of this year, I can't remember off the top of my head, we purchased the 5 printer setups for the poll pads for early voting. I believe it was last year. And those have worked really well, and they print out that voter certificate that we keep the physical copy of. And it replaced the form that the individual voter had to fill out by hand. So it cut down the time of check-in from, a couple minutes to seconds, and has made everybody's life so much easier, the poll workers, the voters moving through the lines. We had hoped that we would get state funding to purchase printers for all the counties, for all of the precincts, and it does not look like that is gonna happen. One of the things that has been stressed at our regional meetings is that for this election, it is crucial to have backups to your backups and to have an actual physical copy of a voter signing that certificate. We have talked about that, the importance of that, and it would take up too much time for us to go on election day back to the paper copies of the voter having to stand in line and fill it out. I've talked to Bartow County and to Gilmer County. They have purchased the printers for all election day precincts. So I reached out to No Ink and had them give me a quote for those printer setups for election day. And another benefit to those printer setups is, in the past, anyone who has worked elections has noticed how flimsy the card reader is and how it can come loose, and that you have a problem programming the card, you might have to take it out and plug it back in and wiggle it a little bit. With this setup that they have, it's a metal stand, and it actually, there is a screw that holds that card reader in place so it can't wiggle around and move out. So that's another benefit to it, other than just moving the voters through the line, their check-in quicker. I would like to ask the board to vote on us purchasing these 24 printers for election day. I've included a copy of the budget to show the line items where we have the money in our budget, so we would not have to do an amendment. we're getting close to the end of the year. We haven't used that money for anything else. I don't foresee us needing those funds for anything, and this would be a good purchase for us to use it for. So I just would like the board to consider that and us move forward with, purchasing the printers. And I talked to No Ink, they said the turnaround time would only be a couple weeks, so we would definitely have them tested by the Secretary of State and then delivered to us before the November election. And the majority of our poll workers are already familiar with it from working early vote, and it would be something that when we have our training that we would go over with all of the poll workers.
If you recall, I believe we had one here, it might have been pre-you, and maybe even you, Rick, but I know you guys have been to the early voting, and even the stands that we currently use right now where they're spinning them around and the wires and it's just, you're begging for trouble, I think, with the current system, the way that they are. So when I first saw these, it was probably about 2 years ago in Fannin County, because they were one of the first counties to pilot them, and I thought that they were an excellent upgrade for the staff, and like you said, for knowing that the cards are going to be in there proper, the little pieces and the chip thing that will fall off. So I think that it's a wise use of the money. I also think that it's very beneficial and time saving for, like you said, not only the staff, but obviously for the voters. We don't want them to stand in extremely long lines. And then the safeguard of having the signature, because right now what we've got is on a full pad, and I don't know if any of you have been on election day paying close attention, but you know how they do this, and it's not even a signature that's legible. So I'm not gonna say it's gonna be much different, but at least we have a paper backup now, and but this is your signature, or what you represented is your signature, so I think it's a good plan.
And one of the things they talked about is it had, with the new poll pad check-in that we have and everything being real time, it doesn't happen a lot, not near as much as it used to. Occasionally it might happen, and that's why they have told us make sure you have backups to your backups. But when we get that list of voters after the election, for us to look and make sure that the number of check-ins and the number of people on that list match. And this would just be another way for us, if it didn't match, to have a backup to go back and look and say, well, I've checked off, it would be time consuming, but I've checked off every single one of these, and here's the one that for whatever reason didn't go across, and I need to physically go in and give that voter credit in the system. So it's just another way to double check the work that we're already doing.
So when I was at one of the early votings, I saw this actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that the wiggle in it, and then the person that was trying to vote was questioning why we were having a problem, and we tried to explain it to them. And then we actually pushed them over to the other one that had the hard frame on it that held the card, and they were able to go through. It was like, well, is that gonna be okay? Well, that was fine. So it added a lot of questions to the voter standing in front of you, and to me, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I just have one question that, the little tapes that they use, I suppose that's a proprietary item as well that would be removable. And do we have any idea on the cost on that?
We already purchased the thermal paper. When we got the ones we already have, we just went ahead and bought a case of them. So we already have those. It wouldn't be any more cost than what we already have. It's just we would buy it a case at a time. And I want to say, if the price hasn't went up like everything else, I want to say it was about $4.50 a roll. So it was cheaper for us to buy a case than it was to buy individual rolls.
Right, gotcha.
And we would just, when we started to run low, we'd buy another case.
I was just looking for some sky high.
No, it wasn't astronomical. It was about $4.50 a roll.
How long do you have to do we maintain these printouts at all?
Yes.
How long do we keep them?
We keep it for 2 years, the same as 24 months, the same we do as any other election.
The only reason I even mention it is because thermal paper over time fades.
Yes, and we asked about that whenever we found out we were going to thermal paper, because if it gets warm, it turns, and so where we store it and the conditions that we store it in, we should not have any problem, and so far we have not saw any problems with it.
Any other questions?
Yes, so, okay, so I'm trying to get these numbers to add up. Okay, so on my copy of the budget, it's on page 2, small equipment and co-equipment. So that only adds up to $12,000, so where's the other money coming from? Do we have to move something around in the budget?
That's just where I was showing we have money and
Uh-huh.
we'll be able to combine those into one line item. Whichever line item that finance says I need to take it out of, we'll take that money from it and combine
You
it.
just move it around,
Yes.
so that, I mean, we've
Yes, I'll end
definitely
up
got
doing-
$16,200
Yes.
remaining in the budget, that's, okay.
I will end up doing it under a budget transfer, so I will move the monies out of those line items into whichever one finance tells me you need to take it out of this.
Right, gotcha, plus some extra money
Yes.
too, gotcha, okay.
It's, I mean, like, just off the top of my head, I look at like repairs and maintenance, and you have a little bit of extra there that potentially could get or something like that, that they would tell you to move it over there. Okay. Gotcha.
Just something else for my education, is the fiscal year for Pickens County the actual calendar year, or is it?
It's the
Calendar,
calendar.
yeah, it's calendar.
Yeah, we'll start over with the new budget in January,
Right.
so that's why this late in the year,
Mhm.
I don't foresee us, I mean, we did have an additional expense, that we weren't expecting when we had to buy the new paper,
Right.
from legislation, but I already allocated that money, for it, so we don't have to worry about that having to come out of a line item because that's already been set aside. So I don't see any reason, for us to be spending large amounts that we have, in these line items towards anything, so it wouldn't take away from anything we've already, planned to purchase.
You've already accounted for the other paper we have to spend money on, right?
Yes, the paper that, we had to order, we went ahead and ordered enough in case we had a runoff in December as well. So we have enough paper to get us through this year. I didn't want to order an abundance of paper
Right.
because I didn't know if going into legislation next year, they might make more changes.
There are
Right.
other options too.
I ordered enough to get us
Right.
through December, and then we'll be into another budget season the next year, and we can order, based on our needs and based on legislation.
Is that the color options that they were trying to throw at us?
Never know.
How do they,
But they retracted that.
how do they charge you for water, natural gas, and electricity? I mean, does it come in at the end of the year that they'll you back for a pro rata basis?
Yeah, so, that's what we're allocated for our building, and then anything that gets submitted to, because, we share the building.
With the state
Anything
patrol.
that gets submitted to finance for those items will come out of that whenever finance takes it out.
Well, if they don't take anything out, then you get it back.
Anything that is not spent for the year goes back into the general fund.
Who takes it out? I mean, how does it?
Finance would, because it wouldn't come directly to me.
The bill would come from the,
You know,
state patrol directly to finance department here.
it seems like it would be prorated. I mean, it would be allocated to prorata.
And see, all that was worked out with the commissioners, so I don't have anything
It's above.
to do with
Okay.
utilities. When
You have
they,
no control over it.
when they signed the agreement with the building with the state patrol, they worked all that out, so I don't get any of that information, it goes straight to finance.
So you might get it, at the end of the year, you might get a hit for the whole thing at one time,
Yeah, however they submitted it.
or they don't.
Any other thoughts, comments?
So I make a motion to approve the purchase of the poll pad printer check-in stations, 24 of them, for $16,200 from No Inc.
I'll second it.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries 4-0. Thank you. I think it was a good decision to move forward with that, so. All right, next item on the agenda is staff comments. We want to hear from Jenny and stuff.
Well, I don't really have anything.
She's been a week in making, Sunday through Thursday.
That's kind of what I was wondering.
Well,
Did you
yeah.
enjoy that training?
Yes, it was very informative.
She's
Glad
still
you're still
here.
I know we didn't
Yes.
scare her away. That's exactly it.
It was a very good training. I think Jenny learned a lot. It was a refresher course for myself. I will say there's some things that I learned, that maybe either wasn't presented before or I didn't pick up on it because there was so much information. So I think it was beneficial for both of us. During that training, we got together and met with our counterparts in other counties and had, roundtable discussions at lunch and passed around, ideas and I think it was very beneficial and very enlightening for both of us. We're getting ready to go to Catoosa County on Thursday for probably one of our last regional meetings before the election. And then we got our ballot proofs in. We started looking over those today. We'll continue doing that till the end of the week, and hopefully we'll have them ready to submit for approval. We got to do 2 sign-offs on it now, so we'll submit it. With the first sign-off, they'll send us information back, and then we'll submit it a second time before it actually goes to print. We will start sending out UACAVA absentees on September the 17th, so we'll have them back from the printer by then. We will take applications for absentees all the way up until the 25th of October.
September.
No, October.
Yeah.
And we will start sending out regular absentees on the 7th of October. So our staff is busy with all of that. Plus, we've had a lot of people coming in, checking their voter registration, wanting to register to vote. So we've been really busy. The phone's been ringing with questions.
Yeah, a lot of first-time voters. That's good.
Very good.
So nothing's changed on this, right?
Nothing's changed on that. We'll start running our ads for the upcoming election. We've got training that's going to be coming up in September. We'll have poll worker training, and then we'll have some managers training. We'll get ready to start testing the equipment as soon as we get our election project back. So we're doing all the motions, getting ready for it.
So with regard to the form of the ballot, the formatting and the, typeface and all that kind of stuff, just the kind of nitty-gritty stuff. I mean, people have asked me about that and I'm thinking, well, the Secretary of State handles all
We
of
have
that.
ballot builders that handle that.
Okay, well, that's what I
Yeah,
was.
we check it off. We have an example ballot that they submit to us, and we check off and make sure that the state races are in the order that it's supposed to be in, and it leaves blanks for local races. So then we make sure that we've got our local races where it needs to be, that all of the contests are on there, that if there's any questions that they're on there. I checked today and I double checked and I triple checked the wording for my T-Splot. And then I told the commissioner I was gonna send him over, a copy. I said, I've checked it, but I want you to sign off on it as well to make sure it's worded the way that you had it worded. So we're going through it with a fine tooth comb to make sure everything's on there and listed like it's supposed to be.
Have we got local races?
We do.
I haven't seen anything really.
That was the election that we had in May, was for
But I haven't seen anything outside anywhere.
we don't have anybody that's contested.
They're not contested.
Oh, wow.
Every one
Yeah.
of them
Well,
is,
except Rick's, is it
well, that's the
Kayla?
state,
Oh,
but not
oh,
local.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I think of that as.
Yeah.
That's why.
Because
local. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, every one of the
Downhill
local
from
races
me.
that, we had the independent candidate for coroner, she submitted her signatures And she would have been the only contested race for the person that's running as Republican, and then there would have been an independent. But when we went through and verified signatures, when we took out all of the number of registered voters or non-registered voters, and then we took out all of the people that signed it that lived outside of Pickens County, and then we took out all the people who had been canceled due to no activity, and then anybody who was a felon that signed it, the number of signatures that she had was not enough to meet the percentage that she had to. So now even the race for coroner isn't contested. So all the local races are uncontested.
So you're not gonna probably see a lot of people.
Waving their
I mean, as I'm
banners
driving the roads going in and everything, you see all these signs,
Yeah.
and I haven't seen anything
right.
in Pickens, and I was
Right.
like,
And
nothing.
early vote starts at the rec center on
The
Tuesday,
15th.
not Monday, because that
Because
is the.
Monday is Columbus Day and it's a holiday.
Mhm.
So instead of 17 days of early voting this time, we'll only have 16. It will be that Tuesday through Saturday the first week, Monday through Saturday the second week, and Monday through Friday the third week.
So, there's that, and then, anything else? Any other questions for Stacy?
So what about staffing? Do you feel, are we fully staffed at this point for the election? I've been recruiting like a maniac.
As far as poll workers,
Yes, and the first question I get is, now, don't I have to be at the poll at 5:30 in the morning?
Yeah.
I say, yes, but it's only one day. You
And
can
work
do
for
it.
15
and make
hours
sure you tell them it is a paid.
for $25.
Yeah, a lot of people think it is still a volunteer.
No, that's a good
14 an hour, right?
And
Ha
and that is one thing,
Coming out of your
I'm-
pocket.
I'm waiting to see if this SEB rule changes. And if it does, I think that one thing that we need to consider is upping, what we pay our poll workers. I didn't put it on the agenda for, this meeting because we're gonna wait and see what happens. We normally sit really good at about 75 poll workers for the big elections. And that puts us at having about between 5 and 7 people at every precinct, which is a good number because we worked in May on a skeleton crew and only had, 5 people at just about every precinct. And we got through it, but I do like it when we have, plenty. And we've been getting poll worker applications like crazy.
So you have people that are actually applying.
People
Good.
are coming in and filling out applications. I haven't ran anything in the newspaper yet. I was going to, and before the election starts, just anybody who was interested, just to, get a couple more. 75 is a good number. We'll take 120 if we can take them. We don't want to, some of these precincts are small. We don't want to overcrowd them with voters coming in and having poll watchers too. We don't want to have too many, but it's always good to have a roster of people, that are on standby in case someone gets sick or somebody calls in. If there's a death in somebody's family, that we have people, that we can call out to go to that precinct. So I feel like we're good. We've heard back from about 60 plus, for training coming up. And I always end up having to send out like a second email just to remind, hey, if you haven't signed up for poll worker training and you want to work this election. But I feel like, when I send that email out this week, that we'll get the couple stragglers who haven't responded to us yet, or maybe that it went to their junk mail, we'll get everybody else to respond to it. So I feel like we're in a pretty good place.
And you have the 3 days set up for the poll worker. You're gonna have a separate one for poll managers, and then you will have a makeup. So if somebody doesn't make one of
Yes.
those first 3,
And we haven't set the makeup date yet, because we have to wait and see how many people don't actually show up
okay.
to the poll worker training. And we started doing the poll manager training separate, because I have to go so much more in depth with the managers than I do the regular poll worker. And when we were doing it prior, the regular poll worker was getting overwhelmed with all the information I was trying to give to the managers. Plus, it was taking about an extra hour, for the training for me to go over the basics, plus go over what I need to talk to the managers about. So we decided to divide the manager training up. We did that starting with the March election this year. It worked really well. Poll manager training normally goes about 2+ hours because not only do we go over changes, we go over paperwork, but then we also sit down and discuss between the managers and assistant managers, scenarios that happen in their precinct that they think other managers need to know in case it happens. So by the time that we finish up, it's normally a 2-hour plus training session, but I feel like it's very beneficial to us and to them.
Do you have that date set yet?
I haven't, for the manager training, no.
Did we all pick the same day?
No, because I can't, I'm gonna be out of town.
I just got my
for
schedule,
those
so I'll
trainings,
give
so I'm
you,
hoping.
I
Okay.
got my schedule this morning, so, these extra poll workers, which, I'm glad there'll be more people available, do we have to pay them if they don't work?
If you don't work, you don't get paid. To do training, you get paid.
Okay.
But if they end up, if we tell them, hey, we're gonna put you on standby
Right.
and use you if we need to, can you keep your schedule clear just in case? If they don't work, we don't have to pay them.
Perfect.
Yeah, because that's one of the duties of the poll manager is to sign off on who was working at the precinct.
Yeah, they do a payroll sheet.
Yeah, they do the
and send it
payroll,
to
so
us.
yeah, they would just not appear on the payroll sheet, okay, good deal. Any other,
Just, one last thing, the folks in the office after everything's finished, those of us all in the office, do you feel like we have enough to cover the after-election?
So I do because there's only so many spots on the panel. And the Republican Party, they like to submit their representatives to sit on the panel. We normally use board members for the Democratic Party, but I think Terry's been working on getting some additional people to sit on those panels to kind of free y'all up. One of the things that, I won't go into too much detail because we're still working out the logistics of it, but because of new legislation where we have to report our absentee by mail all the way up until the day of election and our early vote by 8 o'clock that night, we will work on, we will process early that day and we will tabulate earlier. So we will run the required notices that we have to in the paper and post those. So that way the public knows it is open to the public. Anyone who, we are going to have to rethink our process of how we normally do it because anyone that is sitting on the panel for the tabulating will have to be sequestered. So from the time that we start early tabulating, those people will not be able to leave until we have uploaded those results. They won't be able to use their phone. So we can't necessarily use our board members to do that if they're going out to pick up memory cards.
Right.
So we're gonna, still work on the logistics of how we're gonna do that, who's gonna sit on those panels. I've already spoke to the Republican Party about when they need to get me their list for me to have it signed off on by the Superior Court judge. I've talked to Terry about the Democratic Party members. We've already got our office staff and our nonpartisan. So we'll just work on fine tuning all of that, by next month.
and as a side note, one of the things that I've already told Stacy, if you guys will recall, we called a board meeting at 6:45 that night. We're gonna do it at 9 o'clock in the morning in case we end up at the office all at the same time or need to do anything, have multiple board members on a panel, we're calling it, I think we said we'd do like 8 or 9 o'clock that morning. Everybody will report the office and we will call our board meeting to order at that point in time.
And
So that throughout the day, we're good, and we've already talked about that too.
I'll
so.
send out the instructions for that whenever I send out your assignments for election day.
But we'll still be doing our support duties after that.
At your
Thanks to the
precinct,
precincts.
Mhm.
As long as you are not on the
Sequester
early
panel.
tabulating panel, and being sequestered, then yes, you'll,
So the tabulating would begin at what time? Roughly?
We don't know.
it's whatever time, whenever I fine tune everything. What we talked about doing, and after talking to other counties who have done this before, depending on how many absentee ballots we have, if you're on the processing, panel, that's opening the absentees early, but we're not running them through. So we could, depending on how many we have, we could say, okay, the processing panel can come in, we're gonna set the time and have it published in the legal organ that we're gonna start doing that at 1 o'clock. And that panel can come in, and when they're finished opening, they can leave. But if we say that we're gonna start tabulating and advertise that we're gonna tabulate starting at 6 o'clock, then we can start running those through as of 6 o'clock, but anybody who's on that panel will not be able to leave.
Starting at 6.
If
But I mean, you can still go to your precincts throughout the morning,
yes.
the day and afternoon, but
Even
at 6
through
o'clock,
lunch.
Yes.
you're not picking up, we're not picking up
Potentially, yeah,
any
if you
memory
get.
cards, because it takes us twice as long when you're driving.
But potentially, if you're not on that panel, then you guys will
Then you
still
won't
pick
have
up
to
your
worry about
cards.
it. And as
So-
long as we have, somebody from the Democratic Party to represent on that panel, then I won't have to use, our Democratic board members to do that, because that's the reason in the past that we've used those board members, is because we haven't had anybody.
Yeah, we have to
to sit on
have
that
equal,
panel.
we have to have equal representation on the panels. So unfortunately, Becky and Terry have had to pull double duty in the past, but hopefully,
And we're thankful that you have.
yeah, hopefully you've got a few names of people that you can submit to
I'm hoping.
Stacy.
You're gonna make it sound very exciting
I'm
and
trying, I'm gonna tell them, even if they get sequestered, they still get to go to the bathroom.
Yes,
Yeah.
they can go to the
They just cannot use their phone.
Yes, they
Okay.
can't even use their phone for any, they don't want to take their
Yeah.
phones up when they get. But one thing, that is crucial to let them know is that if they are on a panel, being on a panel is not like being a poll worker. If you're on a panel, it is not a paid position, so it is a voluntary position.
And there can't be, it's very clear
And it's
in the
not all day
rules.
long.
Right,
It's just
exactly.
for, however many hours that we're tabulating. But
Just tell them to come hang out with us, it'll be a great time.
Well, and with so can the same person be on the ballot opening panel and on the tabulating panel? Yes,
They don't have to be, but they can.
but they could
they
be,
don't have to be.
because I was thinking we did on both, but,
Yes.
so we could, okay,
Yes.
okay. Alright, that's helpful.
But once you hit the tabulation panel,
That's
you're
when
in.
that sequester.
Yeah, you're in.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so you can't go
Right.
collect cards or,
Right,
and so
so
that's
we're
gonna-
not gonna be able to do that, that's where I really,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
okay.
All right. At this time, I'll ask if there's any public comments. Well, as usual, we appreciate you being here and sitting through all of this, so thank you.
Glad to do it.
Very good,
I am interested.
Driving.
very good. All right, I'll go ahead and start with board comments, and usually I start with that, but I'm gonna start this ladies first. Go ahead, Becky, any board comment?
No comments.
Rick?
Oh, I want to thank everybody for all the hard work and documentation again. The highlighting of the red lines makes it easier, so much easier. I appreciate it very much.
Terry?
I agree, that the red line, I love a red line document, and I'm sorry that I have many
Do you
changes
want me
that
to
are gonna
do
require this big
a
red line.
to this
Yes.
one?
Red line on that one then too.
Oh, definitely,
Okay.
definitely, yes, thank you
Please.
very much.
Thank you, yeah.
But I also just wanna say, I feel like we are so lucky to have Stacy and her staff. I mean, I really do, because this is a really, really tough job, and I just think, you know what, if some of those people on the state board would come and see
Mm-hmm.
what happens in an office every single day and comes to an election and, more than just going to vote, but they understand what is behind the
Yeah.
scenes.
Or work an election.
Exactly, working, yeah, something,
Yeah.
you know, that maybe we wouldn't have some of the rules that they're,
Be a poll watcher for
that, you know.
Yeah, be a poll
And-
watcher, be a
and-
poll worker, just
Exactly,
be present and know the process before
right,
making
Yeah.
changes.
so, we appreciate you.
And I doubt they would come all the way up here. We could send them an invitation just in case, see if they show up. But yes, thank you so much to all of you for all your hard work, all of us, except
Yeah.
I know.
You're good.
And Karen, thank you for helping us so much.
Yes,
And Mary for doing the recordings. And I'm just glad to be alive.
And we're
We're
glad.
glad-
Yeah, we're glad, we're glad that.
Oh my gosh.
We are too, Ed.
And I'll just agree and echo everything that's been said here tonight. I know that, we've got a lot more work to do, because we've got the election coming, but I think that we're taking all the necessary steps, especially Stacy and staff and Karen, getting all of our policies and procedures and everything, and Jenny not giving up on us yet, sticking with it.
You're not allowed to quit.
Right, Mary, love our website, I think it's gonna be great, I think it's gonna be an excellent tool for our voters here in Pickens County too to use, so, yeah, don't give up, let's keep going, we got lots to do still, so.
I just think about, and Becky's really the only one that's sitting on the board from the original board, from 2021. I just think about how far we've come from,
wow.
July of 2021 till now, and, we're still improving, we're still learning
Yeah.
and fine tuning things, and it's a process that never stops, but we've just come a long way since
How did we
July of
get here?
2021.
Slowly.
So we appreciate the board and
Yeah.
especially Becky, thanks for sticking it out.
You have good people and you can get there.
Very good.
Right.
All right, last item on the agenda, do I have a motion, we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any additional discussion? All those in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank y'all.